Okay, next topic. I wanted to get into Israel a little bit. Blinken made a trip to Israel. I believe it was yesterday. And Netanyahu basically said, thanks for the trip and everything, but we're going to go ahead and go into Rafah no matter what, with or without your help. With or without your funding, we will do what's necessary for our military objectives. This is probably a big red flag for the Biden campaign, right? For the Biden administration. When you have Israel not bowing down and doing whatever the U.S. wants, it's very contradictory to what Ukraine is doing or what was doing. I'm going to get into that a little bit. Zelensky is sort of following this path with certain things, surprisingly. But Netanyahu deliberately saying, thanks, but no thanks. We're going to go ahead and do it. We'll take your funding. If you don't want to give it to us, and we'll go ahead with it anyways. The U.S. is losing its grip on Israel. Israel is going to do what it needs to do to defeat Hamas, to complete its military objectives. And if the U.S. wants to help, great. And if they don't, then they're going to do what they need to do anyways. I think that's a big that's a very good sign for Israel's sake, right? They're not going to blindly follow the U.S. and do what the U.S. says, right? They're going to do what they think is best for their people, for their objectives to defeat Hamas. And obviously, you've got Biden on a hot mic after the State of the Union saying, me and Bibi are going to have a come to Jesus meeting. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to give it to him. And we're going to hash this out and he's going to do what we want him to do, right? Doesn't appear to be working, right? I mean, deliberately saying we're going to go ahead and do this with or without you. I bet you that Blinken was stunned. I don't think he expected that. I mean, maybe he did. But with this conflict going forward, this will be something to keep an eye on. The Biden administration versus Netanyahu. I wouldn't be surprised if they've already got plans in the works to replace him with a coup, potentially. I don't know. Don't put it past the U.S. to do that. You could argue that Netanyahu is using this conflict for political gain to stay in office, stay in power, right? But then you can also look through the lens of they're doing what they need to do, right? Hamas started this. Israel's going to finish it. I will say there were some very troubling videos that came out of innocent Palestinian teenagers being hit by drone strikes and tragically being hit. Obviously, I do not support the killing of innocent civilians. Do I think this is a widespread issue? I'm not too sure, right? I don't. What I know is Israel has dropped leaflets and given Palestinians advance notice to get out when they are launching attacks. I do not think on a wide scale that Israel is trying to kill innocent Palestinians. Do instances like that happen? When they happen, are they tragic? Yes, and I do not support it, and I think that's disgusting and awful. Do I think it's a widespread issue that Israel is trying to ethnically cleanse Gaza of Palestinians? I don't. I think horrible instances like that happen. Again, the cold response is this is war and stuff like this happens. It's not good. I don't support it. I think it's horrible, right? I don't think this is a widespread issue of Israel deliberately killing innocent civilians. I think the innocent civilians that do die most of the time is Hamas putting them in harm's way and building bases under hospitals, schools, places with massive gatherings of innocent civilians underground, and Israel giving advance notice, Hamas not letting them leave. We talked about that last episode. But videos like that come out are very chilling, upsetting, and I condemn that. I don't think that is happening widespread. That innocent civilians are deliberately being killed by Israel with drones. and who knows? I'm not trying to defend what happened, but perhaps they thought that they were suicide bombers. I don't know. I believe they were moving towards Israeli troops. They were kind of running towards Israeli troops. Not defending it, obviously, but like I said, I do not think this is a widespread issue of Israel committing genocide. Obviously, if this was the case where Israel was giving no advance notice, was just deliberately wiping out innocent people, I would not be supporting Israel. I would say that needs to stop immediately. But the evidence shows that Israel is going above and beyond, trying to not kill innocent civilians, trying to get them out of harm's way, and Hamas is stopping them from doing that. So I don't think there's a widespread reason to think that this war in Gaza is not directed towards Hamas and eliminating Hamas. I don't think that's the case. I think war is awful and innocent people die, and it doesn't help when the opposing military, I guess you call it, Hamas, is using them as human shields. So, all that to say, it's good that Israel is not caving to the pressure from the United States and from everybody. Everybody is pressuring Israel to halt this permanent ceasefire, let Hamas stay as it is, and obviously I don't like seeing innocent people die. Obviously that's not something I support, but Israel is not to blame for it. Hamas is mainly to blame for it, for putting them in harm's way. So we must continue to let Israel do its job and do what it needs to do to get rid of Hamas for its own people, for its own safety, because Hamas has already proven that it cannot stay as it is, because October 7th will happen over and over again. So I would say this is a good sign from Israel's standpoint that they're not caving to the U.S. I want to talk a little bit about Zelensky as well. Zelensky kind of did something similar to this, not as public. When the U.S. tried to get them to stop hitting Russian oil fields, and Zelensky just kind of said, yeah, we're going to do it anyways, which is kind of crazy. U.S. is completely funding your war. I mean, it's a nice breath of fresh air that Zelensky isn't demanding more money from us. It's nice that he's standing up to us a little bit. I mean, I wish the war would be over already, but perhaps this is a sign that Israel and Ukraine, that they're not completely bowing down at the U.S.'s feet. It kind of appears that the U.S. is losing its grip on Ukraine and not really gaining a grip on Israel. Could this be a trend towards the U.S. losing its control, losing its power over these countries? I mean, like I said, they never really had much of one to start with Israel, but Ukraine has been the United States' puppy, pretty much. They do what we say. We pay the war, you do what we say. And like I said, it's nice to see Zelensky kind of break that trend a little bit. I mean, I hope Zelensky's not gonna push for peace negotiations, so it won't go that route, I don't believe. But could this be kind of an illustration of where things are going? Is the U.S. losing its power or losing its control over Ukraine? Perhaps. I don't think we're any close to a peace deal, though, unfortunately. But it's just something to keep an eye on. Something to keep an eye on. If this trend continues, it could be a dangerous route. The U.S. losing its control and power over countries, things could get ugly. Events like today in Moscow, perhaps, or near Moscow. But it's just something to keep an eye on, something to watch. Hopefully, it pushes us towards pushing this. If it pushes this conflict towards peace, I don't see that happening, but we can always hope, right?